So when I joined a staff years ago, I asked somebody, I said, hey, where's your family from? Where's your origin? He said, well, we're Maltese.
Oh, wow.
And I said,
Were they Falcons?
no, he said,
No?
he said he was Maltese. And I said, Maltese, where's that from? And he said, the island of Malta.
Cool.
And I said, well, I know Malta.
All right.
Yeah, and I know
Because it's in the Bible.
I know it from one place, and it's today.
Right here in the Bible. So he's Chris, and I'm Jeff, and we're the Bible guys. All right,
So,
man.
Jeff,
Yes.
today we have a segment. Did you see the segment? What
I
it is
did
today?
not. I didn't even look at it today.
It is.
It's an exciting thing.
It is what made Chris mad.
Oh, this is the favorite. This is the fan favorite segment that we do.
Yeah,
People love it.
I don't think that they love it.
They do. I mean, they
think-
tune in for it. As a matter of fact, people skip all the teaching and they just go to these segments to find out
Oh, I hate
when
you do that.
are we
You're so
doing
ridiculous.
this segment. So cool. So the idea behind the segment is
Yes.
that you are a very passionate, enthusiastic person,
I
and
am.
you have strong opinions about how your life goes and the things that are happening around you, and this informs a lot of us on maybe how we should behave whenever there's a potential we're going to run into you.
So I was with Trey, who's on our staff, just yesterday. This is not what made Chris mad, but I'm telling you this.
Okay.
And we had really bad customer service at a restaurant that we went to, which I've mentioned before. Right?
Oh wow.
And I said, I just can't believe those girls were on their phone. You know, they hired teenagers and they're just doing the little phone thing together, both of them. So it wasn't just one person slacking off; it's two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the customers are getting ignored.
Well, it's a scientific fact. You cannot watch a cat video without showing it to somebody else.
Right?
It's been proven.
And then I said to Trey, I go, oh gosh, I said, good customer service. I said, it is just such a rare thing these days. I sort of got mad, right? I was like, I can't believe that, we're just walking out and all these different things.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, it didn't really matter to us. And I said, no, you don't get it. And I said it out loud. I sort of projected this. I said, when I get mad about good customer service, I'm not even thinking of me. I'm thinking of the owner of that restaurant. That poor guy is actually getting a bad name because of those two girls. And that could be lack of training. Could be his fault.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it's just, whatever. I said, and then I'm thinking of like what is this world coming to? Like America, right? America should have good customer service.
Right.
Like, is it just going to decline?
You're turning into your grandparents now.
I know.
What is this world coming to? These young people standing around not working.
But it is true. Most of the things I get mad at, it's not just for me. It's usually for the world.
So this is, you are vicariously suffering for all the rest. Selflessly suffering with your anger and outrage.
Selflessly angry outrage.
Wow. It's so thoughtful of you.
Yeah.
So how are you helping us this week? What made you mad?
Today, it's just me.
It's you.
It's not for the world.
This is only for you.
You know what I just absolutely hate, and I experienced it this week?
Okay.
Runaway eyebrows and untrimmed nose hairs.
Oh, no.
I know. But you can't tell me. You can't tell me that when you see somebody with absolute runaway eyebrows that should be trimmed, or especially nose hairs sticking out of your nose, right? And even the ears, right? I understand that they creep up on you, right? But like that stuff is very easy to maintain. There is not a single person in the universe that would say, oh man, it looks really good. Untrimmed nose hairs.
Oh, right.
When hairs are sticking out of your nose.
Maybe there's people who think that's attractive.
Yeah. Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm talking to this guy, and it was unbelievable. It was out of control. And I thought to myself, dude, I know you looked in the mirror this morning. I know you did. And it's so bad that you expected like the Navy SEALs to rope out of the helicopter out of the hair sticking out of your nose, right?
Okay.
They're going to shoot down and land in Vietnam,
Right.
Because what is happening? And I thought to myself, dude, you had to have seen that. And not only that, but the guy's married.
Huh?
So I'm thinking, your wife sees you, bro.
Yeah.
Right. So let's pretend that
so
he
what
can't
you're
see.
thinking is he looked in the mirror, saw those ropes hanging out of his nose,
Yes.
and went, "No big deal. I'm just meeting with Chris today." Is that what he did? It's no big deal. I saw them. I don't care about them.
Listen, he went.
Is that what he did?
He went.
Or do you think he looked in the mirror
in
and didn't
public
notice?
places besides meeting with Chris.
Do you think that he just looked in the mirror and didn't notice?
No.
Is it possible?
I think that he didn't care for some reason, and he must be
He doesn't
married
care.
to a woman who doesn't care.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
As opposed to he didn't notice.
Well,
What if he's looking at the top of his head and he's fussing about the top of his head and never thought to look at his nose?
Okay, he has raging eyebrows.
Oh.
And by the way, when you
maybe that's what it was. He was concerned about his eyebrows and didn't notice his nose hairs.
why are you coming to this man's defense?
Well, clearly this is a soft or a touchy point for you. Okay, I'll let you have this one. You can have it.
Well,
I'm just saying. I mean, your defense is he looked in the mirror and allowed it. I'm saying I don't think he allowed it. I don't think he noticed it.
Oh, there's no way he didn't notice it.
Okay.
And by the way, he is a barber. Guess what? That dude gets his hair cut.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so, what about with the trimmer, with the comb?
So a word to the wise as we wrap this section up, because I mean, I'm pretty sure we could take this most of this session today, apparently.
Yeah.
This is a time. If you have a meeting with Chris and you have to have a personal meeting with Chris,
not about me,
make sure
bro.
you're well groomed.
No.
If you want to talk to him in the lobby at the church on Sunday, make sure you come in looking your best.
Yeah.
Don't come in raggedy. Don't, and you got to cover it all. You got to cover the whole thing, not just.
As intelligent as you are, it's amazing how you can come up with the worst conclusions.
What?
Now, here's the conclusion.
What am I supposed to take?
Here's the conclusion.
If you accidentally overlook
here's
something,
an idea. Here's
it's going to infuriate Chris.
Look in the mirror and trim the unwanted, gross hair that seems to go out of control.
Okay.
Just have some common sense.
All right, man. I'm going to try harder. I'll try harder.
You're fine.
I'm fine today?
Yeah.
I'll try harder.
Today.
Okay. So yesterday, they were anticipating this storm. They were anticipating the shipwreck, right?
Yes.
Now, today it actually happens.
Right.
Right. So here we go. Verse 27 in chapter 27 of the book of Acts as we continue through. We're coming close to the end here. It says about midnight on the 14th night of the storm, 14 nights. This is a 2-week storm.
I'd be throwing up
I'm
every
sure,
moment.
Especially in these little boats. This isn't a giant cruise ship, right? He says, so about midnight on the 14th night of the storm, as we were being driven across the Sea of Adria, the sailors sensed land was near. They dropped a weighted line and found that the water was 120 feet deep. But a little later, they measured again, found it was only 90 feet deep. At this rate, they were afraid we would soon be driven against the rocks along the shore. So they threw out 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. Then the sailors tried to abandon the ship. They lowered the lifeboat as though they were going to put out anchors from the front of the ship. But Paul said to the commanding officer and the soldiers, "You will all die unless the sailors stay aboard." So the soldiers cut the ropes and to the lifeboat, let it drift away. That's a sad moment. Just as day was dawning, Paul urged everyone to eat. "You've been so worried that you haven't touched food for 2 weeks," he said. "Please eat something now for your own good, for not a hair of your heads will perish." Then he took some bread, gave thanks to God before them all, and broke off a piece and ate it. Then everyone was encouraged and began to eat, all 276 of us who were on board. After eating, the crew lightened the ship further by throwing the cargo of wheat overboard. When morning dawned, they didn't recognize the coastline, but they saw a bay with a beach and wondered if they could get to shore by running the ship aground. So they cut off the anchors and left them in the sea. Then they lowered the rudders, raised the foresail, and headed toward shore. But they hit a shoal and ran the ship aground too soon. The bow of the ship was stuck fast, while the stern was repeatedly smashed by the force of the waves and began to break apart. The soldiers wanted to kill the prisoners to make sure they didn't swim ashore and escape, but the commanding officer wanted to spare Paul, so he didn't let them carry out their plan. Then he ordered all who could swim to jump overboard first and make the land, and the others held on to planks or debris from the broken ship, so everyone escaped safely to shore.
Okay, if this were made into a movie, this would be one of the most intense shipwrecks ever.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing how Luke, again, he's writing because he was there, right? Apparently, and yet he doesn't give as much attention to how they felt. Like he could have said, "Everybody thought they were going to die,"
Right.
And it was like, so think about this: how bad does it have to be for skilled sailors who know like what to do,
Right.
to cut their life rafts,
Right.
and then to cut their anchors, to say, we're going to leave the anchors in the sea in a desperation to head to the beach.
Right.
And then for them, once they're shipwrecked.
Cut off the rescue boat.
Yes. And then, which is what I try to say, lifeboats. When I was trying to, and then, not to mention, throw their wheat overboard.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, like, hey, I know it's wheat. I know it's food. But it's either that or, obviously we're going to die here. And then they shipwreck. The boat gets crashed up. And then imagine in that moment, it's so weird how the Roman soldiers, they were charged to have prisoners. That was their job.
Right.
And yet, here's what they thought. They thought, we're going to die. So the best, forget the orders, forget everything else. Let's just kill the prisoners, just so that we're not charged with letting them escape.
Right.
And then let's save ourselves. That's how desperate they were.
Yeah.
Let's save ourselves at any cost. And yet somehow they all grab planks of boat and then just use debris to sail ashore. I mean, think about the imagery of that. It's got to be incredibly desperate.
Yeah. So it drives them to prayer.
Yeah.
Is what happens, right? And which, unfortunately, for many Christians, it's got to get this desperate before we pray. But hey, when there's nothing else left, that's all you've got left, you better pray. I think it's always better for us to have a habit of prayer, that we spend regular times in prayer. But when it gets particularly bad, we have to remember that every problem is a prayer problem.
Yeah.
We had an old grizzled missionary that I used to work with, and he just had this calm about him. I would bring teenagers with me back when I was a youth pastor, and we would go to do some mission work. And it was always a little intense and scary, and they were doing things they'd never done before, and they were, cross-cultural work is hard, and then, the way that the police work and the way that all the cultural things were happening, and then we were in an area that had a certain amount of danger to it, and so there was just a lot of intensity. Because of that, there'd always be little just scruffs between students. Kids that had been friends for years, now all of a sudden it kind of at each other's throat. Everybody's tired, it's uncomfortable, it's hot, it's gross, dirty kind of stuff. And so it get frustrating. So every time I was with Jack would get up and he'd always give the same speech. Listen, it's going to be uncomfortable. Listen, you're going to be in situations you don't want to be in. But he said, you have to remember, whether it's you feel like you're on the verge of persecution, or you're in real physical danger, or it's just that you're uncomfortable because it's hot and you feel grumpy towards the person who was, getting too loud. Every problem is a prayer problem. And he said, if you don't learn anything else from this trip, I hope you go home knowing every problem is a prayer problem. And of all the things in my life that I've learned from grizzled old Christians that came before me, that's probably the most important thing that I've ever learned, is every problem is a prayer problem. And you find that here. So he's giving all these details in verse 29. Hey, it was 120 feet, then it was 90 feet, and you're reading going, what in the world? Why? Why do we even care that this is in the Bible? But what you get in the back is, so they threw out 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. Right? So they finally prayed. They did everything they could do at this point. They've thrown everything out. They cut off the life raft. They did everything. And the only thing left is prayer. And the really great note, we love the Life Application Bible. So I know this is a long piece for me, but Life Application Bible, the note for verse 29 says, in the middle of a midnight squall, the passengers and crew did all they could possibly do. They dropped some anchors to try to stop the runaway ship. Then they prayed. Of course, Paul, Luke, and Aristarchus were praying to the true God, the only one who could do anything about this situation. It's a good reminder for us. We must never rely solely on our own wisdom or skills, but it's equally wrong to sit and do nothing when there are still actions we can take to overcome certain problems. Do all that you can to fix the problem, then trust God to do his part.
Yeah.
And I think that is the lesson to take away from this passage.
It reminds me of one time I did a message a long time ago, like 20-something years ago, on self-help. And it's the idea that, we are told, self-help is a good thing, and it's sort of elevated way beyond what it should be. Like, for instance, if you go into Barnes and Noble's,
oh, sure,
it's like the second biggest section in the entire store is self-help. Go to you to fix you. You can help you. Only you can help you, kind of a thing. And it sounds like, we finally get to the end of ourselves. When circumstances are beyond our control and everything is out of our control, then we go to God. And anyway, in this message that I wrote, I remember that I said, I don't know anybody who, when circumstances are beyond their control and the bottom drops out beneath them, nobody drops to their knees, looks up in the sky and yells, self-help, right?
Right.
They yell, God, help,
Right.
Because the problem is this. Let me see if I can get this right from all those years ago when I wrote it. I wrote that, so when you go to self for help, self will help. But the problem is the help that self gives usually isn't really helpful help. And then you'll be going to self, asking yourself to help you get out of the help that self helped you get into in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just that whole entire idea that self-help is only going to get you so far, which is exactly what you just read,
So they are in a boat, apparently a big boat, 276 passengers.
Yeah.
Right, that's a big boat.
Yeah, it's not as big as a cruise ship like you mentioned.
Right, but it's big.
It's going to be a big boat.
Yeah, this is going to be like we're thinking the big wooden ships. This isn't just a little tiny fishing boat.
Which, by the way, when they said they threw the wheat out, it wasn't just one box of wheat.
No. This was cargo.
Right, not for 276 people.
Right. Well, it might not have been for feeding either. This could have been a cargo ship because they caught an Egyptian ship that was already going.
Oh, that's right.
So this isn't necessarily
I
a
never thought
passenger
about
ship.
that, yeah.
So it was an Egyptian ship that was already heading there to Malta. They get on that boat and put them on as passengers.
Well, still, I bet you they wish they would have had it at Malta.
Yeah, exactly. So they gave up some of their living here. Yeah. If this was a business proposition and they threw off a bunch of stuff, they're sacrificing everything at this point. This is, hey, we're filing Chapter 13, right?
Right.
Is what we're going to have to do on this. But so you have humans that have conquered the ability to make floating things. So they're very ingenious. They're very intelligent. They figured out how to travel. They figured out how to find. Malta is a little island out in the middle of
teeny tiny
they're not going for Sicily, which is odd. They're going for Malta, which is a little tiny island. So their ability to navigate by the stars.
Well, they weren't going for it. They said they gave up. It's just where they found themselves.
Yeah.
Because they gave up. It says that they wanted to sail into the wind, but they gave up and let the storm take them where it was going to go. Yeah. And so when they saw the beach, it was unrecognizable. They didn't recognize it.
Oh, that's true.
Which means that they actually didn't know where Malta. Here's what they thought: land.
Yeah.
That's what they thought. Yeah. Which, by the way, let me just say this: it says that Malta was 80 miles south of Sicily.
Sicily. That's right.
Yeah. Which, there you go.
Yeah. So the point that I was making is they have leveraged every bit of human wisdom. They know how to make the sails. They know how to make a boat that floats on this thing. They've built such a great system that they have this great commerce that's happening all over the Roman Empire, all around the Mediterranean Sea. These guys are courageous. They think they know a better way, even though it's not a good time to sail. We're really good sailors. We're going to go ahead and do it. And there's a certain amount of control and belief in themselves. And then real life happens. Circumstances out of their control happens. They're in the middle of a storm that lasts for 14 days, and they've lost all hope. And then they turn to the one who is bigger than the storm, who's bigger than the Mediterranean Sea, who's bigger than all the things. They came to the inventor of the universe, and that's all that they had to rely on. And that's okay. That's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah.
Right? When you get past yourself and your ingenious things. They did all the work they could do, and we all have responsibility to do the most, do everything we can to help. But then at the same time, simultaneously, you've got Paul and Luke and Aristarchus who are trusting in God, the creator of the universe, to overcome these things. And God says, hey, not even a hair of your head is going to perish.
Yeah, and when it was giving all the specifics, and it said, by the way, when it said they were driven across the Sea of Adria, it says in my notes in my Life Application Study Bible that the Sea of Adria refers to the center part of the Mediterranean Sea between Italy, Crete, and the northern coast of Africa.
Right.
So really, it's just like the deepest part. They referred to it. So think about that. So think about not only were they in peril, but they were in the deepest part.
Yeah.
Which means it's the worst place to be.
Yeah. When you drown there, you're really drowned. Right. Yeah.
Right. Nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to find your remains.
Right.
Nobody's going to find the ship or anything like that. So, and I think it's also interesting that Paul is the one that starts to take command a little bit. He's the one that starts to say, hey, eat. Normally you would see Julius or the Roman guard or the captains or those who were in charge. Obviously they were busy, doing whatever they could for the ship. But Paul says, hey, let me encourage you to do this. And so in this moment, Paul becomes a little bit of a leader.
Yeah.
But think about it.
He's thinking of the care of the people.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
So think about it. It's a leader for caring. It's a leader for the needs of everybody. So he's showing compassion. He could just be in the corner eating himself.
Yeah, well, the best leaders are servant leaders.
Right.
Right, yeah. So then to finish up, the soldiers, after this shipwreck happens, the soldiers are like, all right, well, we have to execute the prisoners. Because the Roman soldiers would pay with their own lives if they lost, some prisoners. And now they're thinking, well, we're out of control, man. We're shipwrecked and all this stuff. These guys might get away. Let's execute them. But Julius stepped in and saved their lives. And, this is just a reminder that God uses unexpected people to fulfill his purposes, right? So sometimes God will bring you allies from the most unexpected places. Here's his captor who's saving his life. when in reality, standard procedure for the Roman soldiers would have been to execute them all. So it wasn't like the Roman soldiers were trying to do a bad thing here. This is what their normal procedure, this is what they were taught to do. If you're in a situation where you lose control, execute the prisoners. It's worse to let them get away than it is to execute them, right? And then God used Julius to step in and say, no, this isn't Paul's time. He saved all their lives. And I think we can just have confidence that when God is in control, which he always is, God will use sometimes unexpected people to fulfill his purposes.
Well, that's great. I think that's a good place to end and wrap up. So the lesson, if you were to put it in one sentence for us today, actually, there's a couple of different lessons, isn't there?
Yeah. Keep praying.
Keep praying.
Keep praying.
Every prayer,
do what you can do.
Every problem's a prayer problem. Do what you can do. Trust God for the most important things. Be on the lookout for unexpected people in our lives.
Yep.
Right. And that's great. Those are great lessons. All right. Well, we'll see you next time on the Bible Guys.